Hi, my name is Ian Kinder. I'm with Live Safe Academy. This is number 2 in our series, New Gun Owners Academy. We're doing this as a public service. What I'm going to talk about today is the number 1 rule for safe gun handling. It is the number 1 rule. It is the golden rule, because as long as you follow this rule, even if you do everything else wrong, and we don't want you to do everything else wrong, but even if you do, at least you're not going to have a tragedy. Now, I want to give credit where credit is due. I've been a National Rifle Association instructor since 1999, maybe 98. I think it was 99. But I teach the NRA rules for safe gun handling, the fundamental rules for safe gun handling, the 3 fundamental rules of safe gun handling, which you always apply anytime you're handling a gun, whether the gun is loaded or unloaded, whether you're shooting the gun or cleaning the gun. I also teach the NRA rules for using and storing a gun and the Edit Eagle gun safe program for kids. And in this series, I'm going to do an individual show on each one of those individual rules. If you like this show, if you feel it's helpful, you can help us help you with a couple really simple steps. You can help us help other people too. If you're watching our YouTube channel, then subscribe to our channel, like the video, hit the bell, the notification, and then share the video with other people. If you're listening to our podcast, subscribe to our podcast, rate our podcast, leave us a review, and then share the podcast with other people. That will help us get into the search engines. And then go to the video description or the podcast description, where we'll always have relevant information, helpful links based on whatever we're discussing in that show, including, like I just mentioned, the NRA rules on gun safety. We'll have direct links for all of that in the video and podcast description. We also have in the video and podcast description livesafeacademy.com/connect, where you can go to get access to all of our podcasts, our videos, our articles, our in-person classes in the Detroit, Michigan area. And yes, we do travel. And then also our live virtual programs that you can participate in from anywhere in the world. Now, this is the number 1 rule, the most important rule, the golden rule. Because like I said, if you follow this rule, even if you do everything else wrong, at least you're not going to have a tragedy. That rule is always point the gun in a safe direction. Now, this is not a real gun, so I don't have to apply the gun safety rules to this. That's why we use this when teaching. But what we want to understand is we always want to point the gun in a safe direction. And safe direction is defined as any direction where if the gun was to unintentionally discharge, there would be no harm to life and minimal damage to property. We say no harm to life because we don't want to hurt anybody by accident. If we have to shoot somebody in self-defense, that's an on-purpose thing. That's out of necessity. But we never want to hurt somebody by accident. We also don't want to hurt our pets by accident. We don't even want to hurt squirrels outside by accident. If you're hunting squirrels on purpose, that's one thing, but not by accident. So, no harm to life if the gun was unintentionally discharged, but also minimal damage to property. Anywhere that bullet goes, it's going to cause damage. But I'd rather cause damage to a floorboard than a flat screen TV. Now, when we talk about safe direction, the safest direction to point the gun is going to depend on where we're at. And we've got to think in terms of 2 things: penetration and ricochet. A bullet will go through most things in a modern structure, particularly a residential structure. It will go through walls, it will go through windows, it will go through furniture, it will go through appliances. And bullets can travel a long distance with lethal potential. So we always have to think, where's that bullet going to go if it penetrates through what I'm pointing at? But we also have to think in terms of ricochet, because if that bullet hits something that it can't penetrate through, it doesn't just disappear. So where's the bullet going to go if it doesn't penetrate through? Now, the FBI released a training video many decades ago where they taught something called skip shooting. So if somebody was on the other end of a car, you could see their feet and you want to shoot them. You can shoot at an angle where if the bullet hits the ground, it will skip in a straight direction, and the attempt is to hit the person on the other side of the car. That's called skip shooting, because the bullet will ricochet and then travel and still have lethal potential. We also have to think in terms of splatter. Bullet goes down, hits something, pieces of the bullet can come back. But when we talk about ricochet, Let me give you an example here. I worked a scene one time. An individual took his life. And when he took his life, he had the gun in his right hand. He had placed the gun up to his head like this. The bullet was underneath his head, and there was leakage here. Now, if you didn't catch this, I want to state it again. The gun was in this hand. He was right-handed. He was laying to his right side, and a bullet was underneath his head. Then people investigating the scene thought he must have done this, which makes no sense. Anybody who's familiar with suicides know usually a person's right-handed, but whether they're right or left-handed, if they put the gun up to their head this way, the entry is lower than the exit. I'm looking at the camera backwards here because you get an angle this way because the gun is held this way. So you get a lower entry and a higher exit. So that doesn't make sense. There's some confusion. Why is the bullet underneath his head? Why is the leakage there? But the explanation of reaching around this way simply doesn't make sense. So I get my flashlight. I'm looking at the wall. What do I see? I see a bullet mark in the wall. So the bullet went through him and it hit the wall. But remember, the bullet's underneath his head over here. So I immediately take my flashlight to the other wall. There's a bullet mark there too. And this is what happened. Bullet went through his head, hit the wall, bounced off, hit the opposite wall, bounced back and landed right underneath his head just as he happened to fall. And of course the leakage was from gravity, not from pressure from the shot. Well, think about that. Now he lost his life, but let's say there was a ricochet like that. That bullet comes back and can hurt you or somebody else, even though it had bounced off of two walls. It made a complete triangle and came back to him. So we always have to think in terms of where's a bullet going to go if it penetrates through? Where's a bullet going to go if it doesn't penetrate through? A safe direction is defined as any direction where if the gun was so unintentionally discharged, there would be no harm to life, minimal damage to property. We have to think in terms of both penetration and ricochet. Now, the safest direction is always going to depend on where we're at. Up is usually not the safest direction because what goes up can come down. Bullets can come down with lethal potential. It's a TV show called Mythbusters where they actually dealt with this issue, bullets coming up and how they can come down with lethal potential. One of our vehicles for the medical, the examiner during New Year's, we work in bad areas. A lot of people shoot their guns off on New Year's, and a bullet had gone up, come down, and smashed one of our windshields. So they can't come down with lethal potential. So up is usually not the safest direction. But again, depends on the circumstances. Down is usually the safest direction. But what if you're on the top floor of an apartment complex? There's potentially people beneath you, but nobody above you. So now all of a sudden, up might be the safest direction. Where you point the gun in this direction depends on what you're pointing the gun at. A single shot from a handgun is probably not going to go through, looking at the camera's awkward, is probably not going to go through a brick wall. So as far as penetration is concerned, you don't have to worry about the bullet penetrating through a brick wall if it's a single shot from a handgun and hurting someone on the other side. If it's vinyl siding and all you've got is your drywall and your vinyl siding, unless that bullet hits a stud, it's probably going to travel right through. Hits a window, it's going to travel right through. If I'm in the basement, my basement is below the ground, then it's not going to penetrate through and hurt somebody on the other side of the wall. So it always just depends on where we're at. Up is usually not the safest direction. Down is usually the safest direction. Where I point in this level is going to depend on what I'm pointing at. But remember, a safe direction is defined as any direction where if the gun was unintentionally discharged, there'd be no harm to life, minimal damage to property. We have to think both in terms of penetration and in ricochet. Now, in the next show, I'm going to talk about the next fundamental rule of safe gun handling, which is another way that we can prevent a tragedy. This is our responsibility as gun owners. These are all things that we have to make a conscious, deliberate, and be diligent that we're always applying these rules every single time we're in possession of a firearm. If you like this show, if you think it's helpful, remember, you can help us, help you, and other people too in very, very simple ways. If you're watching our YouTube channel, subscribe to our channel, like the video, hit the notification bell, share the video with other people. If you're listening to our podcast, subscribe to our podcast, rate our podcast leave us a review, share the podcast with other people. These are all things that help us get into the search engine, helps us reach out to help more people. And then always go to the video description or the podcast description, where we'll have valuable information there for you, like the NRA rules on safe gun handling, the Ed Eagle gun safe program for kids, the rules for safe usage and storage of a gun. And also, you'll have our link, livesafeacademy.com/connect, where you'll have access to all of our podcasts, our videos, our articles, our in-person classes in the Detroit, Michigan area, and our live virtual programs that you can participate from anywhere in the world. Thank you very much for giving me your time. Hope you thought this was helpful. Stay safe and have a great day.